Referees, bloody rees. Love them or hate them, the beautiful game would be nothing without them. Over the years, we've had some fantastic referees. Kalina, Howard Webb, Mike Dean, and whether that be because of his refereeing ability or just the fact that he seems like a fantastic bloke, I'll leave that down to you. But we've also had some absolute horror shows. Chelsea's Champions League rage, Thierry Henry breaking Irish hearts, and of course, Simonik receiving 3 bookings. It's just simple maths. But at this current moment in time, I would say that refereeing the PGMOL is probably the worst it's been in a long time. Last season alone, we had 31 VAR mistakes. 31! VAR was introduced to do the exact opposite of this. Instead, it's caused more problems. It's now sparked a new debate. Do we want VAR? Do we need VAR? Was football better before? And obviously, at this current moment in time, there is a referee that is absolutely bang in their headlines. The massive elephant in the room that I've got to mention at this point. How good is Mark Clattenburg on the Gladiators? I actually wish that was the elephant in the room, but instead it is, of course, Mr David Coote. The poor fella has had an absolute stinker. Everyone's seen the video online. Everyone's seen the videos online after another one has been released in the last 24 hours. I actually feel really sorry for David Coote. He's obviously lost his job. Mentally, the way he's feeling, he's obviously in a bad place, and my heart does go out to him. Whoever the bloke is as well that's filming, that's obviously meant to be David Coote's mate or an acquaintance or whoever he is that he's met on a night out, you, my friend, are an absolute and everybody in the world that is a football fan has been prone to giving the referee some abuse, whether that be playing, whether that be watching, whether that be having an opinion and voicing it, whether that be thinking it. It happens everywhere. Everybody's going to do this. And that is the world of football that we live in. And it takes a different kind of person to take some of the abuse that these referees get. Now, you're probably thinking, Jack, this is the most hypocritical thing in the world because you're about to go and discuss a load of refereeing mistakes that have happened in the Premier League. And you'd be right. It is very hypocritical. But I just wanted to say my opinion. I'm going into a deep dive of some Premier League mistakes. My opinion on referees is the first bit. This is just me exploring what's happened. So moving on to the video, as you'll be able to tell, we are going to be looking at some of the worst refereeing howlers, some of the worst refereeing performances, some of the worst refereeing moments in the Premier League. Now, some of these are absolutely wild. They make me laugh the more I think about them. I've rewatched them all, and again, when you revisit them, you just think, how on earth can this possibly happen? But like I say, it's human error, although a lot of this is to do with VAR. Some of these you will probably have forgotten about. You're going to have to relive them if you're a fan of the team that was involved. I'm sorry. But as my favourite Disney princess says, the past is in the past, so let it go. Without further ado, let's have a look at some of these referee stinkers. Let's have a look at some of these absolute howlers. And let's have a look at some of the worst refereeing decisions in the history of the Premier League. Let's start with an absolute Premier League classic. One that I'm sure you'll have all thought would have been on this list. Andrew Marriner mistaking Kieran Gibbs for Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. Now, I remember watching the highlights of this on Match of the Day and thinking, how on earth can you possibly have got this wrong? I mean, first of all, for obvious reasons, it's not good that Andre Marriner has mixed up Kieran Gibbs and Oxlade-Chamberlain in the first place. I'm obviously talking about their haircuts. But in a mad moment in a game of Arsenal versus Chelsea, Chelsea have cut in from the inside and had a shot curling into the far corner. Oxlade-Chamberlain is actually on the line and has done his best goalkeeping impression, one that Jens Lehmann would have been proud of. Not that Lehmann and Oxlade-Chamberlain played together, but that's besides the point. It's actually a very good save. He tips it round the post superbly. Keeps it away from the strikers coming in. A goalkeeping technique 101, really. Anything a goalkeeper coach would have been proud of. Unfortunately, he's a centre midfielder and not a goalkeeper. I think the Chelsea players confuse him. I think they all get round him. He gets a little bit flustered. He doesn't know who it was. He doesn't know where he is. And I also think because Oxlade-Chamberlain's a midfielder, he's assuming that it's going to be a defender on the line. Kieran Gibbs, a left back in position. Wrong, Marriner. Very, very wrong. Marriner proceeds to send off Kieran Gibbs for what was an obvious red card offence from Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. Kieran Gibbs, by the way, absolutely spits his dummy out. He was fuming, and I get it. I understand why he's fuming. He's been sent off in a game where he should still be playing. He looks like the bad guy, but everybody knew that it wasn't him. And in fairness to Oxlade-Chamberlain, he does go over to Marriner and tell him that it was actually him. He's got it wrong. He's got it mixed up. But I think because Marriner had already made the decision, he couldn't couldn't overturn it. And the aftermath of this actually probably worked out in Arsenal's favour, because Arsenal got the red card rescinded. There was no suspension of Oxlade-Chamberlain. There was no suspension of Gibbs. And they got a very uncommon apology from a referee in the Premier League. Moving on, heading all the way back to 2005, nearly 20 years ago, the goal that never was. Roy Carroll getting away with absolute murder at Old Trafford. For those of you that haven't seen this, I urge you all to head over to YouTube and watch this video, because it is absolutely mental. Carroll's come and cleared the ball out of defence. He's ran a long way out of his goal and he has to connect with the ball. He has to get rid. The clearance isn't very good. I've kicked me dog harder, I'll be honest. Spurs then win the ball and there's a bit of a mess around in the middle of the field, but Pedro Mendes finds himself on the ball and I think he thinks Roy Carroll's still further out his goal than he actually is. He's very close to his goal, but nonetheless he goes for it, he tries it, and he's well within his right to do so. He hits it from about 35 yards, lobbing Roy Carroll. It's a simple catch from Mr Carroll. All he has to do is take it into his grasp, but he doesn't. He fumbles it, and it very, very, very clearly goes over the line. However, the linesman on the day, Rob Lewis, doesn't wave his flag to confirm that it's a goal. He thinks Roy Carroll has kept it out. I have absolutely no idea how he thinks this, by the way. You can tell in normal time from the camera position on the TV, let alone him being in line with the goal. It's an absolute howler from Roy Carroll, but he will be absolutely licking his lips that that goal did not count. But listen, mistakes happen. Like I said, Rob Lewis clearly didn't mean to. Well, I have heard that he was seen in the Old Trafford tunnel 2 hours after full time, taking a suspiciously brown envelope from Mr Ferguson. From one Man United game to another Man United game, this one is an infamous game, one of the best probably in the Premier League era. Not just for the game, not just for the refereeing mistakes, but the aftermath of the game and what happened in the tunnel, which involves Cesc Fabregas and a slice of pizza. Let's take us back to 2004, the Battle of the Buffet, Pizzagate as it is well known. Man United face Arsenal at Old Trafford. This would be the game where Arsenal's invincible run came to an end. Man United winning 2-0, but there was a lot, and I mean a lot, of dubious refereeing decisions in this game. Mike Riley, the culprit in charge, the referee in charge. I'm sure he then went on to be the head of the PGMOL or the chief officer or something like that. So it just shows people you can always overcome your mistakes. The first glaringly obvious mistake in this game came from Rio Ferdinand on Freddie Ljungberg. Freddie Ljungberg played through one-on-one with the goalkeeper. Rio Ferdinand comes and, I'll be honest, just shoves him. Ljungberg goes flying, falls to the floor, awaiting a referee's whistle, awaiting a red card to follow, but neither of them came. The next howler by Riley came in the form of the late, great Jose Antonio Reyes, absolutely rinsing and repeating on Gary Neville. I'll be honest with you, Gary Neville has done an absolute job on him, chopping him left, right and centre, hacking him down. Eventually is given a yellow card after at least 2 absolute stonewallers. And in typical Neville fashion, he goes on to argue with the ref and disagree. But I'm sure looking back now on his maturity, he can attest to them being definite yellow cards. We are not stopping there though, people. Riley then goes on to have probably the worst mistake of the game, if I'm honest. Van Nistelrooy's high foot on Ashley Cole is absolutely disgraceful. And listen, high foot is very subjective. It can go to your ankle, it can go to your shin, but your kneecap, it's closer to Cole's Corey than it is his foot. A horrendous challenge that I don't even think he was awarded a yellow card for. Surely it stops there, Jack. Surely Mr. Mike Riley can't have any more stinkers. You thought wrong, Will. Very wrong. Step up Wayne Rooney, a young buck in Manchester United. Already made a name for himself, but why not make more of a name for yourself, Wayne? Why not take the dive against Sol Campbell? And listen, he's executed it perfectly. From where the referee is, from the angle of the camera on TV, it looks like a stone waller. Sol Campbell goes absolutely schizo at Rooney, and rightly so, because looking back at another angle, Rooney's giving Tom Daley a challenge for that gold medal. The game finishes, as I said, 2-0 to Manchester United. The invincible run is over. The players aren't happy. It all kicks off in the tunnel in typical Arsenal United rivalries back in the day. And an Arsenal teenager at the time that goes by the name of Cesc Fabregas decides to take matters into his own hand by loading Fergie with a slice of pepperoni. pepperoni. The things I'd do to have been a fly on the wall, the things I'd do for there to have been cameras in that tunnel. Fergie getting KO'd by a veggie volcano. Absolute scenes. Just over 12 months ago, Liverpool faced Spurs, and what preceded was probably one of the worst VAR decisions the Premier League has ever seen. The culprits of this one, Simon Hooper, the referee, and Darren England on VAR. The game starts early doors. Curtis Jones goes into a 50-50 tackle in which he's first given a yellow card. It then goes to VAR and it is upgraded to a red card. I mean, this isn't too controversial. I can see why it's given. There is also a massive argument for it not to be given. Jones is really unlucky. His ball almost rolls over the top of the football, and then the follow through on, I think it's Basuma, is a lot worse slowed down than it is initially. If that's the only VAR error in the game, fine, move on. But oh my word, it's not. An absolute howler. Luis Diaz is played through originally on the audio that is then later released by the Premier League. You can hear the linesman saying he thinks he's offside. The play continues as it's meant to do. Luis Diaz, from a very acute angle, to be fair, puts it into the far corner, which sends Liverpool 1-0 into the lead. The linesman then flags for offside, as that's what he thinks it is. Referee Simon Hooper blows, and as it rightly should, it goes to VAR. It heads over to Darren England. This is where we've got a problem. This is where it all goes tits up. At the time when it actually happened on TV, the commentators didn't think it was offside. The pundits at half-time didn't think it was offside. The reasons for that was because it wasn't offside. The audio is then later released a few days after the event, where we find out that the miscommunication from VAR to the referee has led to an absolutely glaringly terrible decision. Liverpool then went on to lose that game 2-1 in the 96th minute. Matip scored an own goal. Jurgen Klopp, as you can imagine, was not happy. The next shocker, once again, technology is involved. This time not VAR, although VAR could have definitely stepped in. This time we're turning to Hawkeye. In what has gone on to be one of the most mental butterfly effects in the history of the Premier League. Sheffield United goal against Aston Villa was ruled out as it didn't cross the line. But following replays, further investigation, it quite clearly did. Michael Oliver, the referee on the day, and I'll be honest, I actually don't think it's Michael Oliver's fault. This has got nothing to do with him. The goal line technology wasn't working. Defo Tyro Mings doing a little snip job. But nonetheless, Oliver Norwood puts in a free kick, an absolute horror for any keeper, any defender, a looping one into the far corner from about 30 yards out. It's gone through all bodies, and the keeper for Villa at the time, I believe it was Nyland, has gone to catch it, has done it successfully, but as he's caught it, he's fallen back into his goal. And by the way, it's not even that it's close to not being in. It's not like it's a couple of inches over the line. He literally falls into the side netting with the ball in his hand. And like I say, the butterfly effect from this moment is ridiculous. Aston Villa stayed up on the last day of the season by 1 point. That game ended up being 0-0, gaining them 1 point. If that goal had counted, which it definitely should have counted, Aston Villa would have then gone on to lose the game 1-0, meaning they wouldn't have got that point, meaning they wouldn't have stayed in the Premier League, meaning everything that's followed from that moment would not have happened. Ollie Watkins would not have seen the emergence of him. Unai Emery getting them back into the Champions League would not have seen that happening. Numerous transfers, numerous injuries, numerous moments in the Premier League just would not have happened if that goal would have counted. Okay, moving on to another Arsenal game in which they were on the wrong side of a refereeing decision. Arsenal versus Brentford a couple of seasons ago. Arsenal 1-0 up through a Trossard goal, his first goal for the club. But not 10 minutes later did Brentford go down the other end. And following some back and forth in the box, crosses going from left to right, right to left, Ivan Toney found himself in a position to score in an open net for Brentford. A goal that was deemed onside, and Toney was actually in an onside position. However, it wasn't him that they should have been looking at. It was Christian Norgaard. The VAR was being monitored by Lee Mason. He spent 3 minutes looking at the VAR replays of this because they thought it was offside. They were trying to find an issue with it being offside. Ethan Pinnock, they thought was offside. 3 minutes he spent on this to only miss an obvious offside from Christian Norgaard. And it was not a good day to be Lee Mason, because following this howler, he actually got sacked by the PGMOL. What's Lee Mason doing now? Let me have a look. As of August 2023, Lee Mason is referees coach for PGMOL. He works with officials at League 1 and League 2 level and in capital letters, is not involved in VAR work. The final referee howler on this list, again, another infamous one that people will know from recent history, another VAR howler. Rodri's handball at Goodison Park. Now, just to start this off, this is the same game as the infamous meme of Alexander Zinchenko where it looks like he's on the chase crying. The more I've watched this one back, the worse it gets. How this wasn't given as a penalty is absolutely beyond me. In terms of watching it back and still deciding not to award a penalty, this has got to be the worst one I've seen. The ball bounces up in the penalty area and Rodri goes to control it with his chest, misjudges it, and honest to God, it hits him here. Nothing was given on field. It then went to VAR. They checked it again, and they still gave nothing, much to Everton's disgrievance, much to Frank Lampard's unhappiness, in which he came out afterwards and said a 3-year-old could have told it was a penalty. And Frank, I have to agree with you. If I'm honest, a blind 3-year-old could have told it was a penalty. Everton actually ended up losing this game 1-0, and they were in a relegation battle this season. It could have led to the relegation of Everton. It actually didn't in the end, so Man City have probably escaped a little bit there. Rodri's probably escaped a little bit there. The VAR assistant in this game probably escaped a little bit there as well. Otherwise, they could have been following a very, very lonely Lee Mason. So there we go. That is the biggest howlers, the biggest stinkers by the referees in the Premier League over the years. Let me know if I've missed any. Leave me a comment on some referee howlers that you remember. Obviously, there's loads more worldwide, but be Premier League specific. I want to hear about some stinkers, some horror shows that the referees have gone through. Subscribe as always if you are new around here. Remember, people, be kind to one another. I know David Coote is in the wrong. I know what he's done is not good, but listen, as I said earlier on in the video, we don't want one tragic event to lead to another tragic event, so lay off the poor man a little bit. I've been Jack Durkin. This has been HITC Football. It's always a pleasure, people. Never a chore. When you leave, close the door. I will see you all in the next video. Take it easy, everybody.